Can we just take a moment to notice how unhappy our friend Chris Perkins looks? Greetings and welcome from the Panderverse. It is I, the OG GM, coming to you live from Site B at 8:51 in the morning on this, the 8th day of a rapidly cooling November. Steve the Cat is here somewhere today playing with toys, and we've got this update from our friends over at, now referring to themselves as D&D Studios, the two game architects, the, as always, punchable face of Jeremy Crawford, looking like a smug fuck that he is, and the always, well, I'm unhappy to be here looking Chris Perkins, looking like, you know, the only time he's happy is when he's running Acquisitions Incorporated. So it's a 30-minute thing with Todd Kenreck talking sort of about a hodgepodge of information or lack thereof regarding the results from the latest surveys and what we can maybe expect for 2024 of D&D. Of course, this is coming to us from Wizards of the Coast and Jeremy Crawford. So, you know, believe what you want to believe, disbelieve what you disbelieve. This is news. I report on the news. Most of the news is Wizards of the Coast related, which is why most of the time I'm talking about Wizards of the Coast. I have been called out a couple times over the past week or so for my pandering or love for 5e and the permutations of 5e. But then I guess you guys have forgotten that I am a Wizards of the Coast shill and I will sell out. So this looks like a perfect time to take a look at what the shape of 2024 D&D is going to be through 2027 D&D during that 5-year sort of Democles that Hasbro has hanging over their head, how it's going to change, how it's going to be the same, and whether we can actually just believe anything they say or not. And it doesn't really matter. Does it really matter in the environment of what is 2024 Wizards of the Coast D&D or Hasbro D&D, because it now does seem like there's two separate things. Anyways, yes, Crawford is now referring to himself as the game design architect. I don't know what Chris Perkins is referring to himself as. I guess he now has the title game design architect too. They talk about the new offices over at Wizards of the Coast, which we've talked about before, on the other side of that lake. And, you know, they bought out this huge building to be the new offices for Wizards of the Coast. And each of the areas have themes. Like there's a Ravenloft themed area in the office. I don't know why anybody would want to work there. A Feywild themed area of the office. Again, why would I want to work in any office that's dark and creepy and looks like either the Feywild or Ravenloft, you know, with orange lights? And I know I mean, a themed office is great, but I don't know. It just feels kind of, I'd have to see pictures. All right. So here's what the D&D architects told us. And I think the thing that it doesn't bring up anywhere in here is that they are now referring to themselves as Dungeons and Dragons Studio. Dungeons and Dragons Studio, not just Dungeons and Dragons, but they are the Dungeons and Dragons Studios, and they're now referring to themselves as the game design architect. So it's not Wizards of the Coast presents Dungeons and Dragons anymore. It's Dungeons and Dragons Studio. Somebody brought up an interesting idea last night. If you want to figure out what Wizards of the Coast is doing with Dungeons and Dragons, you kind of have to also pay attention to what they're doing with Magic, especially in regards to things like pricing and quality, because at the end of the day, Magic the Gathering is still the engine that drives Wizards of the Coast. D&D is the boat behind the engine, but, you know, that most of that money, those millions of dollars that Hasbro throws at the D&D brand, a lot of that is still Magic. All right, so takeaway point number one. If something from the 2014 to 2023 book disagrees with the 2024 to 2027 book, the 2024 to 2027 book takes precedence. But no, it's backwards compatible. That is the definition of not backwards compatible. If any point in time you're telling me a rule from 2014 to 2023 is superseded by how 2024 forward embraces the rule, and if it is drastically enough different, then it is, yes, it is no longer backwards compatible because I have to upscale whatever I was doing under the new rules. So whenever an argument comes up over the perception of anything, you have to, according to this, favor the 2024 book, which means you're going to have to buy the 2024 book, even though they say you don't have to. They've changed the warlock class. And now people are more satisfied with it. Now you remember this, right? They released the warlock. People weren't satisfied with it. So they said, oh, screw that. We're going to re-release it. They re-released it. People weren't satisfied with that. So they went, screw that. We're just going to use the original warlock and just upgrade it. So now the satisfaction has went from the 66 and below percentage to 89. 89% of the people are satisfied with the way the brand new but not new warlock looks. It's the same but different. Each class gets a full page of art, and each subclass also gets art. Of the 1,000 pages, 70% of that is just art. So when you're forking out that $125, $130 for that new player's handbook, remember, most of that you're paying for is art, because each thing is going to get its own art. Full page of art piece just for every single frickin' class. And there's what, 8, 10 classes? And each of the subclasses is also going to get an art. That is a lot of art. Full color, high glossy art. Yeah. There are going to be 80 new monsters in the monster manual. Some of them are taken from previous products. Well, they reference Monsters of the Multiverse a lot in here, and how Monsters of the Multiverse and the new monster manual kind of feed into each other. So I guess a bunch of monsters from Monsters of the Multiverse got shipped up to got to go move upgraded to monster manual. Which, if Monsters of the Multiverse is backwards compatible, I wouldn't need to be in the monster manual. If I already have Monsters of the Multiverse and the 2014 monster manual, why do I need your new monster manual? I don't. Really? Do I? Because you just said a lot of them are from Monsters of the Multiverse, and they've just moved them on over. And if I don't have Monsters in the Multiverse, then I guess it's cool that you have a layout. But if it's already presented to me, maybe just, you could save. I don't know. Just, again. Plus, this is Wizards, so believe what you want. It's very important for you guys to know the font size is changing. Hopefully larger. There's stuff in the books that you guys haven't seen in the playtest yet. Really? Really? You think? Because you haven't even touched on anything in the DMG in the playtest yet, and you haven't touched on anything really in the monster manual in the playtest yet. And at least 1/3 of the playtest were you just retesting previous things because you didn't get the results you liked. And I think the conspiracy that the playtest and the surveys were bullshit, and they already knew what they were going to do no matter what, is something that can be revisited. At several times, Crawford came out and basically said, we didn't get the result we wanted, so we're re-releasing it. So they already had something in mind, and they wanted the people to agree with them. And when people didn't agree with them, they're like, okay, we'll change it, until people did agree with them. So that they already had a plan in mind. And now they're just trying to, make a few people happy by saying, oh, we changed this, but, there is something to add that, Hasbro already has an idea, and the playtests and the surveys are just kind of pointless, and they're going to release whatever they're going to release anyways. And they definitely have a history of doing that. So yeah, there's got to be things in the books that we haven't seen in the playtest. And I'm just like, really? Duh. Between the 3 new books, we have a total of about 1,000+ pages of new content. Okay. New options change the contents of old options. Again, going back to that first statement, if there is something in a 2014 to 2023 book and it contradicts or in any way, shape, or form is different than the way it is presented in the 2024 and going forward books, then the 2024 ruling supersedes the 2014 through 2023 ruling. So, I'm going to stop saying that because it's just way too heavy-handed to go a much simpler way. If the old rules say something works like this, and the new rules say something works like this, the new rules supersede the old rules, and from this point on, something now works like this. So go back and change it. But it's not a new edition. They're going to be more common. They're going to be more magic items. They're going to be more monsters. They're going to be more common magic items like the stuff from Xanthers. Those everyday magic items from Xanthers were some of the best stuff. You know, it really showed the kind of crap that if magic was as prevalent as it is suggested in the D&D world, then you would have just everyday items being replaced by magical equivalent. Why have a broom when I have a broom that automatically cleans? Right? Why have a hat when I have a hat that matches wherever I am, or a cloak that matches whatever situation I'm in, so I always look appropriately, right? So I think everybody loved the Xanther common everyday weird magic items. So seeing some more of those to add to the already ridiculousness of the D&D multiverse, sure, I'm all behind that. More monsters? Do we really need more monsters or more high-level version of monsters? Why don't you just do what you've done with dragons? All right, here's dragon for party group size A, and then here's the, here's 10-year-old dragon. Here's 100-year-old dragon. Here's 1,000-year-old dragon, right? Here's 10,000-year-old dragon. Same dragon, just presented in higher, hit dice. Same thing. Here's green slime for first level characters. Here's green slime for fifth level. Here's an orc warband. Again, we don't need new monsters. We just need, rules to upgrade existing monsters. I don't need 80 new monsters. I'm only going to use the same 10 monsters most of the times anyways. They tweaked some of the classes. They're still not happy with the playtests of druid, monk, and barbarian. So they're going to playtest them again because there's obviously, again, something very specific they want. And people aren't responding to it, so they're going to okay, we had a very clear idea. You don't agree with our clear idea. So we're going to just change a few things. Whether they're going to be drastic changes or just like Magic the Gathering changes, where they just release the same thing and give it a new names. Also, then they went into wanting you to know about the themed areas in the offices and how Chris and Jeremy now have these new titles of game design architect. Chris likes to hang out in the Ravenloft area. Jeremy likes to hang out in the Feywild themed area. And apparently, I think Chris is kind of sort of subtly suggesting that he likes to stay as far away as he can from Crawford. And there are some things coming out next year that they haven't told us about yet. Well, all we know for sure is there's a player's handbook coming out next year. We are 99% sure that at some point in 2024, we will get the 2024 D&D Studios player's handbook. Other than that, well, it's like, I guess at some point in time, there'll be a Monster Manual and DM's Guide. And there's going to be the maybe Vecna-themed adventure, but now maybe not. And you're going to make some other stuff that you haven't announced because you've never done that before. Here's a book. Oh, what's this brand new Asmodeus book? You guys didn't announce that. Surprise. Segue. By the way, the new Chains of Asmodeus thing on DM's Guild is receiving the best reviews of a Wizards of the Coast product in years. Mostly because it wasn't technically written by Wizards of the Coast. It was written by other people, and Wizards of the Coast just waved their hands and went, you have our permission. But yeah, the Change of Asmodeus thing, people are like, wow, this is amazing. It's as good as, Minds of Feldelver or some of the other things that they've done. So it is interesting to know that the last unofficial adventure of the year of old 5e is like one of the best. And then we have the layout of the thing. And it's basically stuff we've all heard. There's no real actual information in here. I think I've broken it down. Safety tools, rule changes, art, what we think the people want, the different, how 5e 2024 and 5e 2014 are different, but the same, how you don't need the new books, but you do need the new books, double talk and rhetoric, and then look at us, we're so cool, we gave ourselves new titles, and Crawford, as usual, is just his smug, shit-eaten self, and Perkins is his usual laid back, I don't want to be here self. Again, of course, I refer to this Chris Perkins as the Chris Perkins 2.0, and I refer to the Chris Perkins that runs Acquisitions Incorporated as the real Chris Perkins. So if you want to see the real Chris Perkins, watch Acquisitions Incorporated, especially like the early Acquisitions Incorporated stuff or the new, most recent stuff. There's the happy, joyful, excited Chris Perkins that loves the hobby. The Chris Perkins that showed up at the convention and did the impromptu Trivial Pursuit thing. That's the Chris Perkins that loves the game and loves the hobby and wants, D&D to be amazing. Then you see this Chris Perkins is like, oh, I'm a game architect now, I guess. I'm just going to, I don't know. I could be wrong. I mean, this is just my opinion. I have no facts. The only facts I know is what they pointed out here. So just break it down again in case there's anything that's new or different. New art, lots of new art, new magic items, new monsters, changes to the classes. The new rules supersede the old rules, but it is 100% backwards compatible, but you still have to buy the new books. And they think everybody's going to buy the new books because people have said, I'm going to buy the new books. I haven't met any 5e players yet that have told me they're going to buy the new books, but whatever. We will see how the year progresses. It's Tabletop Tap Room with what's his friend? Tom at Tabletop Tap Room. If you guys haven't checked out Tom over at Tabletop Tap Room, please head on over. Give my friend some love and help him hit 1,000 subs. He is constantly updating us on the never-ending circus that is the Justin Lanassa legal problems. I don't even bother covering the Lanassa stuff anymore. I'm just like, if you want to know what's going on with TSR 2.0 and Eric's lawsuit and Justin Lanassa's incredible thing of nonsense, this guy right here. He is the number one source for all the tabletop role-playing game news in regards to that area. I don't even bother anymore. I'm just like, if you want to know what's going on with that, go over to him. So yeah, anything, if you are a 5e fan, does anything about this actually excite you? A true 5e player. Is there anything on here and you're like, yeah, I can't wait for new art. Yeah, I can't wait for changes. Yeah, I can't wait to be surprised. Because all I'm like is like, hey, you promised me Vecna. You promised me Vecna to 2014. Where is Vecna? Now, I have been called out for my pandering to 5e and Wizards of the Coast and the 5e adjacent products that I do every Friday. And why do I do that? And I'm going to address that in another video, I think either today or Friday when I do my Friday hypocrisy thing. But, this is the boat. This is that the rest of the gaming industry has to be in the wake. Whatever Wizards of the Coast does, especially with the 50th anniversary coming up, affects every other aspect of the hobby, even if you claims it doesn't. And you're like, I don't have anything to do with 5e and it doesn't affect what I do. It's like, yeah, Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro, especially Hasbro, since they're now referred to it as Hasbro D&D and D&D Studios. And I don't know if they're like two separate entities now. And then I guess Wizards of the Coast makes Magic. D&D Studios makes D&D the game. And Hasbro makes D&D everything else. Because that's what it looks like to me right now. Why are they calling themselves D&D Studios now? I don't know. But whatever choices Hasbro makes with 5e 2024, that is the line of demarcation, okay? That is the iceberg breaker. That is the main course. And everybody else in the hobby, both the 5e adjacent products like Tales from the Valiant and all the OGL stuff, whether you want to admit it or not, as Ed said yesterday in regards to his product, and it's what is Wizards of the Coast going to do? And then we just kind of all respond. And either that respond is amazingly positive, like Pathfinder in 2014, 2015, and Shadow Dark this year, or it's amazingly negative. But, you know, so if you wonder why I pandered to Wizards of the Coast and the 5e adjacent products, it's because that's what makes the news. Anyways, that is what's going on from D&D Studios. So once again, we have Wizards of the Coast that makes magic, D&D Studios, run by the game design architect firm of Perkins and Crawford, that makes D&D the game, and Hasbro, which makes D&D everything else. At least that's the way it stands today. But as always, in regards to anything that comes out from the fountain of misinformation that Wizards of the Coast, everything I just spent talking about for the last 20 minutes probably is completely untrue, and we will see something completely different in a few weeks, because it's a few weeks away. 2024 is a few weeks away. And we still have no release date. Notice that nowhere do they say, oh, by the way, the Player's Handbook 2024 is coming out February 15th. Nope, no date. That's it. See you later. Stay safe, and I will talk to you soon. You damn kids.